Hi, and welcome back to CMG-MathSpace. We were recently introduced to standard form, where we talked about why standard form is important, and then we look at the general formula. Now, we are continuing with the series. We may take about a number of episodes, so stay tuned. Now, before we do much of the calculations, like we do always on this channel, we will read some text for understanding. And then when I think it's becoming too much wordy, I would just jump straight into the explanation and then we continue. So now we go to this area. Now let's look at what is required in order to do a standard form. Now we are looking at to change a number to standard form. First, write down the number from 1 and less than 10. We were introduced to this. Now, then work out the index of 10. For the record, if you are new to solving standard form, my recommendation, which is very, very important, is that you go and watch the previous videos on decimal places and the significant figures. From there, you can jump into these episodes. Else, you would not understand because I wouldn't be going back. We are building the blocks, right? So if I don't take care, I will repeat whatever we have learned already, and the video, in fact, is limited when it comes to time frame. So watch those videos and come here so that whatever I'll say here will not be like a rocket math, right? But it will be very, very understanding and convenient. So that is what I caution. So now we are looking at to change the number to a standard form. First, write down the number from 1 and less than 10 and work out the index of 10. We have looked at this already. Now, to work out the number from 1 and less than 10, put the decimal point between the first and second significant figures of the number. So you see, like I said, you see, to solve standard form, you have to understand significant figures, right? So we are saying that, for example, for 3, 4, 5, the number parts is 3.45. And for 0.000423, the number part is 4.23. Right. Now here, I will not even bother myself reading. I don't want any confusion. I will explain to you on the fly. So here, now, we have this. We are saying that a number greater than 1 has a positive index of 10 in the standard form. So we are just telling you, if you do it correctly or solve the math correctly, this is what you should get. It will be applicable. It's just a rule. But you don't have to choose this, right? So my focus is for you to understand, get the concepts, then you can solve. If you don't get a concept or understand it, don't try and go and do chew and pour or just do it. No, that's not my focus on this channel. If that's your focus, maybe you should skip the video. But if you really want to understand and for the math to be part of your life, your daily life, even when you leave those stage or the elementary stage, this is my point, my objective on this channel. Right, so now we have here, write down the following in standard form. Now we have 2000, we have 10, we have 4,687.02, blah, 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 right? Now, there are some rules. We know, I told you we have whole numbers, and then we have fractional numbers. Now, when you are dealing with standard form, if it's a whole number, meaning there's no decimal points in it, there's a way to do this where we have to move the decimals to the right and to the left. And then for those with the decimal, we also have how to move the decimals and then even, in fact, the movement of the decimals and what they mean, right? So it's important. So don't worry, I'll get them for you. Now, for example, A, we are supposed to do 2000, correcting it, or taking it to the standard form. Now, for the record, the standard form, anytime you have to do a standard form, the decimal point, you have to introduce a decimal point. And the decimal point should be between the first and the second significant figures. That's the rule, the first rule. Always the decimal point between the first significant figure and then the second one. That's the first thing to note. Then after that, we will look at how decimal points are moved to the left or to the right, signifying or giving the symbol of either negative or positive of the index of 10. Now, here we see the result to be 2.0 times 10 raised to the power 3. Now you may ask, we were introduced or we learned that the decimal, that's the index here, in this case 10 raised to the power 3, which is 3, could be positive 3 or negative 3. Now this sign is based on the fact that we move the decimal point to the left or to the right after the introduction of the decimal point. After the introduction of the decimal point between the first significant figure and the second significant figures. So that is the point. So you can write these down because that's what you need as your guidelines to solving these questions. Important thing is to get the concept. Don't rush. Now, after getting the decimal point between the first and the second significant figure, then we look at the index sign. The index sign, if negative 3 or positive 3, it could be negative 2, positive 2, is based on the number of jumps or the hops that we did after the introduction of that. So let's look at this. Now we have 2,000. Now we have 2.0 times 10 raised to the power 3. How did we come about? First of all, we have the 2.0. That's correct. Now the second thing is that here we see that 2 had point after point. In fact, the decimal points came after the 2, right? And then we had it times 10 raised to the power 3. Now, when a number, like I said, a whole number, meaning it's not a decimal number, we introduce the points between that, having that. Now, after introducing it here, so it's noted or known that the decimal point is here. Now, after getting the decimal point here, we will move the decimal points back to a particular point. That's the back of what? The last digit of the number, of the whole number, and which is this particular last 0. Now, let's see the number of hops that we do. From here, you have 1, 2, 3. So that is a 3. Now, why is 3 positive and not negative? It is so because we moved the decimal points after the introduction to the right of the whole number. So from here, 1, 2, 3. So we moved to the right side of our body, of our right hand. So that is the important thing. If you get this concept for A, the rest will be applicable, and that is the important thing. So once again, you introduce the point between the first and second significant figure. After that, from where it was, we move this point to the back of the last digit because this is the whole number. Initially does not have a decimal point in it. So move it back here. Now, when we are moving in it, we move how many times? We move 3 times. Hence, 2.0 times 10 raised to the power 3. We move to the right. Now, once again, another point for bonus or extra is that anytime you see a whole number, right, it's assumed or we have an imaginable decimal point at the back of the last digit. So that's why after introducing the point here, we are moving it back to the original decimal point that was imaginable. But in the number where we have a decimal point, that will be visible, and we deal according to that. So take note. So here is imagine that an imaginary decimal point is here at the back of the last digit. So, but introducing it to make it visible, where we introduce here, we want to go back to balance things. So from here, 1, 2, 3. Hence that. The same thing is here, right? So the decimal point initially is here, but here we move it. We bring the decimal point here, introduce it here. So 1.0. Now, how many times did we move? From here, we move to the back of this, which is 1 time. So we see this. Now, this thing will be, now for this decimal point, this is not a whole number. We have a decimal fraction or a decimal number with a point in it, right? So once it's already here, we will still bring the decimal point, introduce it between the first and second significant figure, which is here. Now, after that, we move back. We count it back. So 1, 2, 3. Hence this. And we are still moving to the right. So that is it. We'll see the next one. Bye for now.